What the hell are you doing to my daughter's eyes? Charles Remington's voice cracked through the hallway like a gunshot. For him, Lila, his 5-year-old daughter, blind from birth, was the only treasure he could not control. The one thing he longed to keep whole and perfectly safe. Maya Williams froze on the rug beside the little girl, a warm cloth still pressed to Lila's eyes. She had only been soothing the child, trying to ease the redness and irritation Lila had complained about, but now Charles stood over them, a tall silhouette of power and fury. "I asked you a question." His voice dropped, colder and sharper. "What are you doing to my daughter?" She said her eyes were hurting. "Sir, I was only—" Maya's voice trembled. "She's 5 years old. She doesn't know what she needs." He cut her off. "You're not her doctor. You're not even her nanny. You're the help. The help." Lila clutched her threadbare doll, the one missing an eye, her small body stiff. She knew that tone. Her father was angrier than she had heard in months. She swallowed, her lip trembling. "I didn't ask her." Lila blurted out, her voice thin but quick. "She did it herself. She wanted to touch my eyes." Maya's heart lurched. "Lila," she began. But the child's wide eyes and trembling fingers told her everything. Lila was lying to protect her father's anger, to keep the peace she thought she could buy with words. Maya's mouth closed. Charles's expression hardened. "Is that true? She touched you without permission?" Lila nodded quickly, staring down at the rug. "Yes, Daddy." Charles straightened, his jaw tight. "No one touches my daughter. Ever. Do you understand?" He turned his glare on Maya. "You're finished with nursery duty. You're on laundry and kitchen from now on, and don't expect full pay this month. I'm docking your wages for this stunt." Maya blinked, the words hitting her like a slap. "Sir, please." "I don't want excuses," he snapped. "I want you out of my sight." Maya's throat tightened. She pressed her lips together, but tears slid down her cheeks anyway. "Mr. Remington," she said softly. "I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to hurt her. Please. I need this job. My mother is ill, she needs medicine. Without my wages." Charles cut her off with a curt wave of his hand. "Then you should have thought of that before you laid a finger on my daughter. This is your warning. Next time, you're gone." He turned away, kneeling beside Lila. "Are you all right, sweetheart? Did she hurt you?" Lila shook her head but didn't look up. "No, Daddy." "Good." He brushed a strand of her dark hair back. Before we continue, if you find this story interesting, make sure to subscribe. It really encourages us to keep bringing you more. "You're my whole life, Lila. I can't protect you if you don't tell me the truth." "I will," she whispered, holding her doll tighter. She didn't add the words pressing in her chest. "I only said it so you wouldn't yell." Downstairs, Maya sat in the staff kitchen, her apron crumpled in her lap. The hum of the dishwasher filled the silence. She wrapped her hands around a mug of chamomile tea, but her fingers shook. Her tears fell soundlessly into the steam. She pictured her mother back in a cramped apartment in Queens, coughing, the bottles of pills lined up on the counter. She had taken this job for the steady pay, the insurance, the hope of a better future. Now, even that was slipping away. She hadn't wanted to touch the child's eyes. She had only done what any nurse would do when a little girl complained of pain. But this wasn't a hospital. It was a fortress, and the little girl inside was both princess and prisoner. Maya wiped her face and stared at her hands, brown, calloused, not soft, but still. She remembered her mother's words. "Our hands carry light, baby. Don't let anyone tell you different." Upstairs, Lila sat by her window, her doll in her lap. She could hear her father pacing in the hall outside, speaking in low tones to Mrs. Leeds, the head housekeeper. She imagined his face hard lines, the crease between his eyebrows. She wanted to run to Maya, to say she was sorry for lying. But she was afraid. She turned her face toward the window. She couldn't see the sun, but she felt its warmth through the glass. She whispered the lullaby Maya had hummed earlier, off-key but soft. "Are you singing, sweetheart?" Charles asked, stepping back into the room. "Yes," she said faintly. "It smells like sunlight." "Lo." He frowned at the strange answer but didn't press. Come on, let's have dinner. Chef made your favorite mac and cheese with truffle oil. Lila rose slowly. She didn't say it out loud, but mac and cheese didn't taste the same without Maya sitting quietly nearby, humming under her breath. In the staff kitchen, Maya folded the damp cloth she'd used and tucked it back into her apron. She thought of Lila's tiny hands reaching for hers, of the trust in her voice before she lied. Maya knew she should keep her head down, do the laundry, and wait for her contract to end. But something in her heart, something her mother had planted long ago, wouldn't let her turn away. Upstairs, Charles closed the nursery door and checked the locks, as if shutting the world out could make it safer. He told himself he was only doing what any good father would do, protecting his most precious treasure. He never imagined that his own perfection, his own rules, might be the bars of a cage neither of them could see. The next morning, the mansion stirred with its usual rhythm, staff moving like ghosts through corridors, breakfast trays clinking softly in the dining room, polished shoes tapping against marble. But for Maya Williams, the rhythm felt different. Hollow. She stood alone in the laundry room, the hum of industrial dryers muffling the ache in her chest. Her hands moved mechanically, folding freshly dried linens, but her mind wasn't there. It was upstairs, with the little girl who had lied. Her paycheck would be smaller now. Rent was due in 5 days. Her mother's heart medication, already running low, cost more than what she would take home this month. Maya had known jobs like this came with unspoken rules. Don't speak unless spoken to, don't overstep, and above all, don't touch what doesn't belong to you. But she had touched Lila not with arrogance, not with defiance, but with compassion, and she was punished for it. She blinked hard, pressing the heel of her hand to her eyes before another tear could escape. She couldn't afford weakness right now, not when everything depended on her strength. Upstairs, Lila sat silently in her reading nook by the window. She clutched her one-eyed doll, a tattered thing with a stitched-on smile. Her tiny fingers picked at the frayed threads as guilt chewed at her from the inside out. Her father had kissed her forehead that morning and told her how brave she was for speaking up. "You did the right thing, sweetheart," he said, smoothing her hair. That woman was careless. She crossed a line, but Lila didn't feel brave. She felt small, smaller than she'd ever felt. Maya hadn't hurt her. Maya had helped. Her hands were warm, and they smelled like mint, and something else, maybe lavender. When Maya touched her face, Lila felt, not blind, not broken, just safe. But then Daddy yelled. He always wanted everything perfect for her. Her room was always too clean, her clothes too soft, her food too carefully plated. He didn't know she hated the truffle oil in the macaroni, or that she preferred Maya's lullabies to the audiobooks piped into her room through the speaker system. She turned her face toward the window. She couldn't see the clouds, but she knew they were there. She could hear the wind brushing against the glass, whispering like Maya's voice had whispered to her the night before. Her stomach hurt, not from food, from truth. Maya spent the day avoiding the East Wing entirely. She didn't pass the nursery, didn't look at the staircase that led to Lila's world. Instead, she buried herself in laundry and dishwashing, her hands raw from bleach and hot water. The kitchen staff kept their distance, offering polite nods but little else. The house was full of eyes that never looked directly at her, mouths that never asked if she was okay. Around noon, as she was scrubbing a copper pot, Mrs. Leeds entered the kitchen with her usual clipboard in hand. She paused near Maya and tapped her pen against the countertop. "Mr. Remington's instructions are clear," she said. "You are not to engage with Miss Lila again under any circumstances." "Understood?" "Yes, ma'am," Maya said without turning. Mrs. Leeds lingered a moment longer, then added, almost grudgingly, "The girl hasn't eaten all morning." Maya's hand paused on the pot. Chef made her favorites. She refused everything, just sat there, humming to herself. Maya didn't respond. She only resumed scrubbing, but inside, something stirred. That evening, Lila lay curled up on her oversized bed, still in her daytime dress. The room was quiet except for the soft ticking of the antique clock on the wall. The doll lay beside her, face up, its button eye catching a sliver of lamplight. She hadn't eaten, hadn't spoken to anyone since breakfast. Her father had been in meetings all afternoon. The nurse had stopped by, tried to read her a book, and left when Lila refused to respond. She missed Maya, missed the stories she told with her hands, the ones where princes were poor and queens wore aprons. Missed the way Maya's fingers brushed across her knuckles before bedtime, grounding her in a world she couldn't see but could feel. "Lila," a voice called softly. She didn't move, but her ears perked. Footsteps, light ones. "Maya?" she whispered. Silence. Then nothing. It wasn't Maya, just her mind playing tricks again. Downstairs, Maya sat in the pantry, her head resting against the shelf of dried beans. The room was dark, lit only by a small bulb overhead. She had come in for canned tomatoes, but instead, she stayed. The silence was comforting. She pulled her phone from her pocket, opened the calculator app, and started adding numbers. Rent, groceries, prescriptions. The total made her stomach sink. Even if she skipped meals, even if she begged her landlord for one more week, it wouldn't be enough. Her thumb hovered over her mother's contact. She wanted to call her, hear her voice. But she didn't want to lie, didn't want to say everything was fine. So instead, she closed the app and whispered, "I'm sorry, Mama. I tried." Later that night, as Maya returned to the laundry room to shut off the machines, she passed the east hallway by mistake. Just a glance, a blink, and then she saw it. Lila, sitting just outside her door, alone. Maya froze, her breath caught. The child turned her face slightly. "Is that you?" Maya didn't move. "I smelled the flowers again." "You smell like sunlight," Lila said softly. "I'm not supposed to be here," Maya whispered. "I won't tell," Lila replied. "I could get fired. I'll lie again if I have to." Maya knelt slowly. If you're still here and enjoying the story, we'd love your support. Take a second to hit subscribe. It really means a lot. Her heart pounding. "Don't lie, baby. Not for me. That's not how light works." Lila reached out. Her small hand found Maya's and held it. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to say you hurt me. I was scared." "I know," Maya said, her voice breaking. They stayed like that for a few moments, two shadows in a silent house, holding hands in the dark. If this moment touched your heart, please like this video to support Maya and Lila, and share in the comments where you're watching from. You might find someone nearby who's watching and feeling the same way you do. From down the hall, a door creaked open. Maya stood up quickly. "Go back inside," she said gently. Lila nodded and slipped back into her room. Maya disappeared into the service hallway. Unseen, from the shadows, Charles stood watching, expression unreadable. Charles Remington had never considered himself a cruel man. Demanding? Yes. Obsessive? Perhaps. But cruel? Never. Everything he did was for Lila. Every rule, every decision, every impossible standard designed to create a world so perfect, so controlled, that she'd never have to feel the weight of her difference. But that night, standing at the end of the East Wing hallway, Charles had seen something that refused to fit into the boxes he'd built. Maya Williams, quiet, firm-handed, hired help, kneeling beside his daughter with more tenderness than most people managed with their own children. And Lila, small and blind and heartbreakingly honest, reaching for her hand like a lifeline. He should have called security. He should have fired Maya on the spot, but he didn't. Instead, he returned to his study, poured himself a glass of bourbon, and stared at the framed photo of Lila as a baby, the last picture ever taken with her mother. It was one of the few possessions he allowed to remain in plain sight. Everything else of Sarah's had been carefully packed away years ago, too painful to hold, too sacred to throw away. Sarah had always been the calm one, the bridge between his fire and the world's chaos. And when she died bringing Lila into the world, Charles buried the softer part of himself alongside her. He looked again at the photo, then at the full glass in his hand. Without drinking, he poured it down the sink. Upstairs, Lila couldn't sleep. Her hands kept remembering the warmth of Maya's fingers, the softness of her voice. Her doll lay limp beside her, but it no longer felt like enough. She thought about going downstairs again, but the fear of her father's voice, sharp, disappointed, kept her under the covers. The next morning, Maya arrived in the kitchen at 6 a.m. as usual. She was early. She always was. She'd spent the night dreaming of her mother's face worn, smiling, coughing softly into a handkerchief that never stayed white. She needed to send money soon. There wasn't time for pride or mistakes. Just work. Mrs. Leeds handed her the daily chore sheet without speaking. Maya didn't expect a greeting. Not anymore. She took the list, tied her apron tighter, and began prepping the silverware tray. By mid-morning, Maya was scrubbing the marble steps at the back of the house when she heard footsteps soft, hurried. "Miss Maya?" a voice called out. Maya turned, startled. It was Jonah, the gardener's teenage son. He worked part-time trimming hedges and sometimes ran errands for the staff. "Mr. Remington wants to see you," he said, slightly out of breath. "In the solarium." Maya's heart dropped. That wing of the house was for family and guests only. "Why?" Jonah shrugged. "He didn't say, just told Mrs. Leeds to get you." Maya stood, wiping her damp hands on her apron, her chest tightening. Had he seen her with Lila? Was this the end? The solarium was bright sunlight filtered through the glass ceiling, casting golden patterns on the floor. Charles stood with his back to her, examining an old orchid blooming in a clay pot. She stepped inside slowly. "You asked to see me, sir?" He didn't turn. "You've been in this house nearly 2 months. Is that correct?" "Yes, sir." "You've worked in elder care before, yes? You're certified?" "Yes, sir. And yet you found time to experiment with my daughter's eyes." Her stomach twisted. "I wasn't experimenting," she said, her eyes hurt. "I used a cooling cloth, an herbal blend my mother used to make. It was meant to soothe. Nothing more." Charles finally turned. His expression was unreadable. "Do you believe in folk remedies, Miss Williams?" "I believe in comfort," she replied. "I believe that sometimes what a child needs isn't something prescribed." He looked at her for a long moment. "My daughter lied." Maya's breath caught. "She lied to protect me. I saw it. I heard it." His voice was quiet now, almost reluctant. "You were right. Children don't trust easily when they're afraid." Maya looked down, unsure what to say. "I won't restore your wages," he added, "but I'm not firing you." Her head yerked up. "You're not to touch Lila again. That boundary remains. But I'm reassigning you back to evening duty outside her room. Housekeeping will continue in the mornings." Maya nodded. "Thank you, sir." He waved her off, but as she turned to leave, he added, "Tell me something, Miss Williams." She stopped. "Why did you really do it?" She turned back, meeting his eyes. "Because she let me, and because no one else had." He didn't reply. That evening, Maya resumed her duties outside Lila's bedroom. She didn't enter. She didn't speak. She just folded towels, sorted books, and kept her head down. But she could hear Lila inside, humming softly. Later, as she passed by to collect the laundry, she saw something at the foot of the door. A note, folded clumsily, in crayon. "I'm sorry I lied. I missed you. Lila." Maya slipped it into her apron pocket, pressed it gently with her palm, and smiled just a little. In his study, Charles stood again at the window overlooking the east wing. He sipped his tea, not bourbon tonight, and watched the quiet movements of a woman who had dared to touch what he thought was untouchable. The fortress was still standing, but somewhere, a door had quietly opened. Maya returned the little folded note to her apron pocket every hour or so, as if to make sure it was still real. The handwriting was clumsy. Letters backward, uneven, clearly written by a child who'd never seen a page. And yet, it was perfect, because it was brave. She spent her morning cleaning baseboards in the guest wing, her knees sore and damp from kneeling. But her mind lingered on Lila's words. "I'm sorry I lied. I missed you." That small sentence carried more truth than most adults could muster. It didn't undo the punishment. Her paycheck would still be cut. Her mother still needed medicine. But it gave her something else, dignity. And that, Maya realized, was just as vital as money, maybe more. By noon, Maya found herself reorganizing books in the upstairs library, another quiet punishment from Mrs. Leeds. As she ran a damp cloth across the leather-bound spines, she heard the unmistakable shuffle of soft shoes. "Maya?" came the whisper. She turned slowly. There, just inside the doorway, stood Lila alone, clutching her doll like a shield. Maya's heart skipped. "Sweetheart, what are you doing out of your room?" "I told the nurse I had to use the bathroom," Lila said, stepping closer. "But I wanted to find you." "Lila." Maya glanced around nervously. "You're not supposed to be here. If your father finds out—" "He won't," Lila interrupted. "He's on a call. I heard Mrs. Lead say he's locked in his office all morning." Maya knelt so she was eye level with the girl. "You can't sneak off like that. What if you got hurt?" Lila tilted her head. "I'm already blind. How much more lost can I get?" It wasn't said with bitterness, just fact, and that made it sting more. Maya softened. "There are things worse than being lost, like being misunderstood." Lila moved closer. "I liked it better when you were here. It didn't feel so tight in the room." "What? Tight?" Maya asked gently. Lila nodded. "Like the walls were shrinking. Like everything was breathing louder than me." Maya wrapped her arms around the child and held her close. "Sometimes, people feel too big for the space they're given. That's not your fault. It just means you need more room to grow." The girl didn't answer, just rested her head on Maya's shoulder. For a few minutes, neither spoke. Then a voice boomed from the hallway. "Lila." "No." Maya stood up quickly, instinctively shielding the child. Charles Remington appeared in the doorway, eyes blazing. "I told you she was not to be near her," he snapped, stepping inside. "She didn't find me," Maya said immediately. "She came on her own." "I don't care how it happened," he shouted. "I made myself clear." Leela shrank behind Maya. "You scared her," Maya said, not raising her voice, but not backing down either. "She shouldn't even be here," he said, glaring down at both of them. "She needs rules, not sympathy. She needs space. She needs to be heard," Maya said, "not monitored like a museum piece." Charles's mouth opened, but something in her tone stopped him. "She lied to protect you," Maya continued, "and now she's lying to find pieces of herself. How long do you want her to keep hiding from the truth?" Silence. Lila peeked out from behind Maya, voice trembling. "I'm sorry, Daddy. I just missed her." "Oh." Charles's jaw tightened. He looked at his daughter, really looked. Her hands trembled slightly on her doll, her lower lip tucked behind her teeth. He exhaled slowly. "Go back to your room," he said softly. "The nurse will meet you there." Lila nodded and turned to Maya. "Will I still see you?" Maya smiled. "You'll hear me, sweetheart. I'll be nearby." Once the child was gone, Charles rubbed his temple. "She manipulates," he muttered, "even at her age." "No," Maya said. "She adapts." "No." He glanced at her. "She's not looking for ways to disobey. She's looking for ways to feel normal. I spend hundreds of thousands of dollars every year to give her that. Money can't teach her how to be a person, sir. Only people can." He looked away, his expression unreadable. "You may continue your duties," he said. "But I don't want another boundary crossed." "Understood?" "I understand," Maya replied, though the ache in her chest told her she'd cross that line again if it meant helping Lila feel whole. That evening, Maya returned to the hallway outside the nursery. As she folded clean towels into neat stacks, a faint knock echoed from inside the door. "Can you hear me?" Lila whispered. Maya smiled. "Yes, baby. I'm here." A moment later, the familiar off-key hum of the lullaby began again. Maya joined her quietly, not in voice but in spirit. And far down the hallway, behind a pane of glass, Charles stood watching, torn between fear and a feeling he hadn't allowed in years. Hope. Charles Remington was not a man who made decisions based on emotion, or so he told himself. But for the last 2 nights, sleep had eluded him. He had replayed the same scene again and again, Maya kneeling beside Lila, the soft murmur of their voices, the stillness in his daughter's face that he hadn't seen in months. It was more than calm, it was connection. Something no speech therapist, no world-renowned pediatrician, no high-tech device had given her. But that connection had come from a maid. He hated how that unsettled him. Downstairs in the kitchen, Maya moved quietly between drawers, preparing the breakfast tray. Though her reinstatement to evening hallway duty had been unofficial, she took the responsibility seriously. It had become the only time she could listen to Lila's voice, her quiet songs, the way she narrated the world out loud just to feel less alone. This morning, Chef had made Lila's usual breakfast: scrambled eggs, toast without crusts, and a cup of warm, diluted juice. Maya set it all in place, adjusting the spoon slightly to the left just how Lila liked it, and took a deep breath. Behind her, Mrs. Leeds cleared her throat. "I'm to inform you," she said curtly, "that Mr. Remington is permitting you to deliver Miss Lila's tray personally today, but only today." Maya turned, surprised. "He asked me to?" Mrs. Leeds gave a look of distaste. "He allowed it. Don't confuse that with trust." "I won't," Maya said, but as she lifted the tray, her heart lifted too. In the nursery, Lila sat by her music box, winding it absent-mindedly. She hadn't spoken much that morning. The nurse had tried to coax her into practicing Braille, but Lila had refused. She missed Maya's voice. The silence of the hallway felt heavier without it. When the door creaked open, Lila turned her head sharply. "I smell toast. And lavender hand cream," Maya added softly. "Maya," Lila broke into a grin. "Only for breakfast duty," Maya reminded her. Officially. She placed the tray on the table and knelt down beside her. "How are you this morning?" "I don't know," Lila said honestly. "It feels like everything's too loud, even though it's quiet." Maya nodded. "That's how the world feels when something inside you's unsettled." "Did you ever lie to your dad?" Lila asked suddenly. The question caught Maya off guard. "No," she said after a moment. "But I was afraid of him, and that made me quiet. Sometimes, quiet is just another kind of lie." Lila picked up her spoon, fumbling for the eggs. "Left a little," Maya guided her gently. "Perfect. Daddy thinks I'm glass," Lila said suddenly, "like I'll break if he breathes wrong." "0. Maya didn't speak for a long beat. Then, softly, she said, "He's scared of losing you." "I'm scared of losing you," Lila whispered. Maya felt a lump rise in her throat. "You won't. Not unless you want to." That afternoon, Charles stood in the security room with the head of staff reviewing footage from the last few days. It was part habit, part paranoia, but when he saw Maya guiding Lila's hand gently across the table, showing her how to feel the edge of her plate, how to count the steps from her chair to the bookshelf, something in his chest shifted. He wasn't used to doubt, and yet, there it was, uninvited, persistent. He turned to the head of staff. "Have the doctors made any progress?" "Same reports, sir," the man replied. "No improvement. Vision loss is permanent. But the child's cognitive development remains strong. Emotional growth slower." Charles folded his arms. "And yet a maid can get her to smile." The man didn't respond. Later that day, Maya was walking toward the kitchen when she heard a voice from behind. "Miss Williams." She turned. Charles stood at the top of the stairway, one hand resting on the rail. "Yes, Mr. Remington? I'd like to speak with you." "In the study." She followed him, heart racing. Inside the wood-paneled room, Charles closed the door behind them. The scent of leather and old books filled the space. "You've been with us. How long now?" he asked. "Nearly 3 months." He nodded. "And yet in that short time, my daughter seems more attached to you than to people we've had for years." Maya didn't answer. There was no safe way to respond to that. "She listens to you. She seeks you out. She trusts you," he continued. "Why?" "I listen to her," Maya said quietly. "That's all." He narrowed his eyes. "You think I don't?" "I think you try," she replied. "But listening isn't about reacting. It's about receiving. Without control. Without fear." Charles's jaw tightened. Maya stepped forward, carefully. "Sir, you've built an empire to protect her. You've wrapped her in the finest silk, the cleanest air, the safest hands. But children, especially ones like Lila, don't need a perfect world. They need a real one." He looked away. "I'm not asking for more access," Maya added. "I'm asking for space, to help her grow in the cracks where perfection doesn't reach." He was silent. Then, almost reluctantly, he said, "She asked if you could read to her tonight. Just for 15 minutes. Maya blinked. "And you're allowing that?" "I'm considering it." Maya smiled. "That's a start." That evening, when Maya passed by the nursery, she paused. Lila's voice was soft, but clear. "I can't see the book," she said, "but I can see the story when you read." Maya opened the door slowly. Charles was seated in the corner, arms crossed, but he nodded once. Maya sat beside the bed, opened the book, and began to read. And for the first time in 5 years, the house didn't feel so quiet anymore. The clock on the nursery wall ticked softly each second like a breath the house was finally allowed to take. Maya sat in the cushioned chair beside Lila's bed. If you want to feel the next chapter of her journey, just comment, "Blind Girl," below and don't forget to subscribe. The ending will touch your heart in a way you'll never forget.